Hi, everybody. It's Jane Celia Hatch, i.e. Bethesda Star, targeted shaman. I'm also a shaman for Paradise Earth because I believe we are headed back towards Paradise Earth, which was once called the Garden of Eden. And we're going through a tumultuous change right now, sort of shedding of an old skin. So I'm here today to do a video on John Lennon. It was just his birthday. I'm a little late. But it's really important, not just because it was John Lennon or his birthday, but because I believe he was a targeted individual. And I believe he had a handler, and probably you can guess who it was, Yoko Ono. So I'm just smudging. I want to bring in the highest source of information. I want to clear my own energy field, clear anybody out there who wants to be. It's a free will universe, so you don't have to accept it. This is Sage. And I'll call in my own spirit guides and power animals. You can see more about shamanism and who I am on my website, BethesdaStar.com. So I don't just do arbitrary videos to degrade anyone or put them down. I do videos and social commentary. I do healing videos. I do targeting, but I also do social commentary when I'm compelled to try to reveal a subject, a situation that could be helpful for the planet, for you, for targeted individuals. And I read Cynthia Lennon's book about a year ago, and she was John Lennon's first wife. And I've also, as a teenager, when John and Yoko were hitting the news, Rolling Stone, New York Times, they were all over the place, and they were mostly naked. They were always doing weird things, and they were supposed to be hip and avant-garde. So I was sort of like, yeah, I guess so. I wasn't in my power yet. I was still influenced by my peers, especially by media. And media was like, oh yeah, they're just so hip and so cool. So, and I never really knew about Cynthia Lennon. I didn't know, their relationship. But as I researched and then I read the book and studied Yoko a little bit more by watching her, I observe, I read people's energy fields. Oh, and I hope you like my new format. It's a virtual screen. I'm just trying it out. I thought it was kind of cool. It's, Bethesda Star. There's the stars and the earth. So it's sort of a combination of my higher self. So I hope you like it. You might see a little blue come through, but I'm here. So in the physical, not just the spiritual. So this is important to reveal to targeted individuals how you could be mind controlled into getting into a relationship that could be to your detriment, to your demise, if you're under mind control. And there's many forms of mind control, but one of the most problematic for targeted individuals is the tinnitus, which apparently is subliminal suggestion. So if you have a weakness, which you all do, many of us come from a trauma-based mind control origin, which includes matricide, often cutting off the mother is a big part of Agenda 21 and the Illuminati's plan, is cutting out the mother from the culture, from religion, from society, and from our lives. It leaves this gaping hole in our souls, and we're more easily manipulated. And John Lennon was a victim of matricide. His sister said his mother was literally yanked from him. So he had a huge hole that he was trying to fill. And I believe he was a high profile target because he was a genius. He was a light worker. He truly did want to bring peace. But I believe that was circumvented. He was circumvented and I think assassinated before he had fulfilled his actual total purpose on the planet. So I'm going to use screen sharing for the first time, and I'm going to show you images and try to go through this quickly because I know people don't really like long videos. So I'm using not just the virtual shield for the first background for the first time, not shield, and screen sharing for the first time. So if you hear me clicking around, I'm just trying to figure this out for the first time, but I love images. That's what shamans see in their journeys. And I love pictures, and I love being able to share these images as I relay to you my impressions so that you can not only inform yourself, but educate yourself about how to avoid potentially being mind controlled to a partner that's going to become your handler or your controller. So I'm going to put on screen share. And Those aren't exactly the images I wanted, but maybe I can find them here. Okay, I hope that you're seeing, I'm not sure you're seeing what I want you to see. Let's see. So I'm going to put share here. And I believe, I hope you're seeing Cynthia Lennon. Okay. I need to make this a little bit bigger, so I need to move this. I hope I can. Okay, so you're seeing, I hope, what I want you to. This is Cynthia Lennon, and this is John Lennon. They met when they were very young. They were in art school in Liverpool. She was sort of the standard goody two-shoes. She always had her pencils in the right order and her paper and always on class on time. And John Lennon was what she called a teddy. And I guess in London in the 1960s, that was like a ruffian. He was a tough guy. And she didn't really have anything, she didn't want anything to do with him at first. And then I guess one day at the end of the day, they were alone in the classroom, teacher left, and she was picking up her pencils, putting everything in order like she did every day. And he started singing a song to her. And she was captivated. Apparently she knew a genius when she saw one, and that their relationship evolved over that. I don't think it actually started until they had the end of year dance and he asked her to dance. But they were very much in love, and it progressed from there. So let's see if I can switch. I think you're still seeing what I want you to see. Yay. Here is Cynthia and John again. I think potentially after they were married, she got pregnant with Julian, her son, and she was living at that point. The Beatles were really taking off. They had, they had done their thing in England and Liverpool, and then they went to the US, and it literally exploded. And she was sort of left at home at his Aunt Millie's house. I think she had like one little room, her and her baby. And, she was he called her whenever he could. It wasn't like today, you can text and email. I think it was once a week she would get a call from him. And they were just exploding all over the US. And eventually he made enough money. He bought a mansion. So she moved from the little room at Aunt Millie, and Aunt Millie didn't really like her. And Aunt Millie was who raised John after he was taken from his mother, who I hear was a beautiful, free-spirited, loving woman, which is often the kind of women they don't want. The very loving, the very nurturing. If you're a DNA target and they know they want you under mind control, they're going to try to get that woman away from you, because she's going to give you so much strength and support and love and creativity that you're not going to be vulnerable later on. So his mother was taken out, was raised by kind of a cold Aunt Millie. And then Cynthia had to live with Aunt Millie until John made his millions. He bought a mansion. She moved into the mansion, and she became his everything, his secretary, the mother of his child. She managed the estate, and while he was in the US and not home that often. But in her book, she said it wasn't terrible. I mean, she missed him a lot, but he came home. And when he came home, it was just amazing. And all the Beatles lived near each other, so they all got together. And when John was gone, she had the other Beatles' wives as company, and she loved John. She was, I guess, what you would call maybe an old-fashioned woman. She was very happy to be with him. She had loved him from the time she heard his first little song, and had stayed devoted to him. They got married in the funky little marriage ceremony. Photographers. She said there was just all this crazy stuff going on. And when they went for their reception, it was a local cafe. They didn't even have alcohol. I think she said they had lemonade. So, but she was happy. She loved him. She loved her son. And of course, now they had this mansion and lots of money. And things were going pretty good. They were starting to have, let me see if this is the picture. Yeah, there's the Beatles in the 60s, and you can see Paul and John and Ringo and George. And that looks like they look so young. But that's where Cynthia came in at this time. They were young, poor students at an art school in Liverpool. So John was starting to experiment with drugs, and that was becoming a problem for Cynthia She was not interested. She's always been a little straight-laced, and I think probably he liked that. It was very good for John because he was very experimental, very creative. She didn't compete with him when he needed to be alone. I think he had the whole top floor as a place where he went with his piano. I mean, in some ways, they were a perfect couple. She was happy to be second to the creativity. I mean, she must have had some angst about leaving her art, but she had her son, she had John, and his genius came first, and she knew that, and she really supported him. And like I said, it seemed like it was a very good marriage until he started doing drugs. So it was a little tumultuous. She did not want to do acid. She didn't want to do pot. She just was like that. I mean, I can relate. I was sort of like that too. And so eventually her marriage was sort of falling apart because he kept telling her to take acid and smoke, and she wouldn't. And finally, she said, well, for her marriage, she might try. So she did, and it was not a good experience for her. So things sort of fell apart even more. And then at one point, she went on a vacation, and she explains it like, I thought I was just going on vacation. Later on, I see it was a setup. I was sent. And there was whisperings of a Yoko Ono at that point. There was this crazed fan, as John described it, and Cynthia saw the letters. It was Yoko just relentlessly writing to him and wanting him to go to her art exhibit, long letters, wanting him to call her, to visit her. Could she see him? And I don't know how long that went on, but Cynthia dismissed it. She thought it was irrelevant. She thought Yoko was just a crazy fan, and there was hundreds and thousands everywhere they went. So it wasn't a big deal. She didn't think. And then she went on this vacation, and she came back, and this woman was sitting on her couch in her front room, and and John was there, and they both stoned, and or on high, high. I don't know what they were on. She doesn't know what they were on, but she recognized it. She'd known John long enough to know. And I think the most eerie thing about it is they treated her like a non-entity. They weren't like, oh my God, there was nothing. It was like they were in another world. It's like they had, morphed into, or especially John, into this other being that she couldn't even recognize. And she was in shock, of course. I think she left because Yoko showed no signs of leaving. And eventually, Cynthia was able to go back to the house with her son, and Yoko and John were gone. And that was basically it. That was the end of the relationship. Yoko and John got together, and John got more and more deeply into drugs and alcohol. I think he got, in my opinion, John started to lose his soul. And this is one sign of an addictive relationship, and I've been in them. You're under mind control, but at first you think you are liberated, because that's the way the addiction goes. You feel like it's like heroin, nothing can compare it to. And that would explain why he completely dissed Cynthia. He dissed his son. I mean, his son has been quoted as saying, it was like my father just completely disappeared overnight. I never knew where he went. This is another sign you're under mind control, is you start, or it's like a drug. You start to cut off anything healthy in your life and anybody that's been in your life. And Cynthia was a good friend, a good wife, a good mother. They were in love. There was no reason he should have cut her off like that. But he did. And more importantly, I guess even was that he cut his son out completely. And Yoko and John just got into one weird thing after another. And at the time, we were supposed to think it was really cool. They were always naked. They were always wrapped up around each other. I mean, this to me is, at the time, I don't know, this was probably the 70s. It was supposed to be cool and avant-garde, but to me, now it looks a little disgusting. He looks like an infant, sucking off his mother. And she doesn't look like she loves him. She looks robotic to me. She looks like she's got him totally under control, and she knows it. This is not an image of love. This is an image of what a shaman would call soul loss. and possession. And John, of course, had the setup for mind control. He had experienced matricide, had his mother yanked from him. He had a hole in his heart. And you crave someone controlling. Cynthia was not a controlling person. Paul McCartney said she wasn't strong. She was strong. She was very strong. She just wasn't controlling. It was a huge difference. This woman was totally controlling. The Beatles testified John couldn't go to the bathroom by himself. She had to go in there. Oh, there was another image back here. Just briefly, this is, you know, of course, the biggest thing, and I've kind of skipped over, is the Beatles. She broke up the Beatles. And I do believe, of course, there was a problem. That's the way abusive people work, gang stalkers work, controllers, handlers. There's a weakness in the energy field. And there was something going on with the Beatles. They had a weakness, and she moved right in. And she started to go to all the rehearsal that never been done. It just wasn't a thing. You know, they didn't want women around because they couldn't function. You know, they became like guys when their girls were there. They just changed, and they really could focus. And she was there. He couldn't go to the bathroom without her. And this is, you know, there started to be accusation. And this is John denying that he's under the control of Yoko. And
well, that's rubbish, because nobody controls me. I'm uncontrollable. The only one that can control me is me, and that's just barely possible. But that's what life is about, and that's the lesson I'm learning. Because nobody ever said anything about Paul having a spell over me when I was with him for a long time, or me having a spell over Paul.
That's because
they
weren't
think that was abnormal. Two guys together, or
pulling each other's soul out of each other's body.
Why didn't anybody ever say, how come those guys not split up? What's going on backstage? I mean, what is that? You know, Paul and John business. Why, you know, how can they be together so long? We spent more time together than John and Yoko in the early days. The four of us sleeping in the same room, practically in the same bed, in the same truck, living together night and day, doing everything together. Nobody said a damn thing about being under the spell.
So Yoko was a bizarre woman from the very beginning. Again, he sort of delved into more drugs. There was more, you know, not love sexuality, but weird sexuality. I would call it first and second, third chakra perversion. And she considered herself a singer. And if anyone thinks, you know, this is singing, I don't know what to say. She was just a bizarre woman who really had no talent whatsoever. And the fact that he thought she did showed he was completely under mind control, in my opinion. I won't make you watch all of this because it gets worse. So that's Yoko's, her talent. This is the two virgins, Alan. Again, it was all about, you know, there's not love in that picture. It's just sex and nakedness. This is her art. It's an apple, you know, and it's ridiculous. So I'm showing these not to make fun of Yoko, but to show there was nothing in her except for deception. She deceived on every single level, in my opinion. And so it was also, they did start to have some problems. Meanwhile, all this time, you know, Cynthia, I think she had a very meager amount of money to raise her son, Julian. And then Yoko started, they started to have problems. And Yoko Ono went to her secretary, who was a young Oriental girl, and said, "You're not going out with anyone. You should go out with John. I want you to sleep with John," basically. She said, "We don't want him to be with anyone nasty, do we?" And so that was how she even controlled his lovers. She was controlling his anatomy, his sexuality, his mind, his heart, his soul. And even when they broke up, she controlled who he was with. So basically, I believe she slowly sucked the soul out of him with drugs, sex, strange perversions, and he was open to it because of this hole in his psyche because of matricide early on, and he cut everyone out. As we all know, they went to New York City. He never saw Julian, and then, as we all know, he was assassinated. Now, it's been written that Yoko has been present during the 9/11. She was at the location of JFK murder, and a lot of people believe she is a double agent, CIA. She's a psyop. She works to bring down light workers, and I don't know, but energetically reading, there's nothing but darkness in her eyes. And we see what happened to John throughout the years, and everyone that loved him got ostracized. And then when he died, um, she got everything, absolutely everything. This is John's son. He didn't get anything, not even mementos, one of his father's guitars. She controlled every aspect of the funeral. Julian, this is Cynthia and John's son Julian, was sort of ostracized. Yoko included him in a very strange way. Everything she did was manipulative and weird and psychotic and sexual. But this is his first son, Julian, and I believe he's had a memorial to his father in Liverpool. So this says his last days. If you look at his eyes, he's full of despair. This is not a happy man. And I don't know if she was responsible for his assassination. He might have been waking up from the mind control. And she notified someone and they took him out because he could have. Every light worker that is incarnate on the earth that comes along has a chance to change the direction of humanity. Michael Jackson, Princess Diana, JFK, Martin Luther King, and they're taken out. So I would not be surprised she demoralized him, ripped him away from everyone that could have given him support, sucked his soul out, and then maybe was partially responsible for his demise. This is a memorial in Liverpool that Julian and Cynthia were responsible for, I guess, funding, and it's his guitar. I get there's a white feather at the top. There was one time John told his son Julian, if you ever see a white feather, it'll be a sign for me. So it was something I guess Julian held on to his whole life. And it is apparently somewhere on the top of that monument in Liverpool. And here again, she sort of owns him in his death. This is his grave in New York, near her. When they take over big time. So I think that's all my images. I hope I haven't gone on too long. It's really important to carefully examine, feel, be in your center when you're choosing a partner. They can, if they're a handler, they can completely control your life and can take over. And unless you have a lot of strength and a lot of support and a lot of a reserve, you may not get out. So that's one of the points of this for targeted individuals, for everybody really, because we're all under a psyop. It's not just targeted individuals. Stay in your shaman center. What is your gut saying? You could be in your heart and your mind in this heroine, but you will still have your God self in your shaman center. Try to stay in your shaman center. Watch what's happening in your life. Are good people being moved out? He lost everything. The Beatles, his wife, his son, his family, his country. Kind of reminds me of Prince Harry at the moment, but that's another video. So I don't know how long this is gone, but lots of love to all of you, and see you in the paradise earth.